Hello, we're going to read from the study of the 10 Sfirot with Rabash. We are in volume 1, part 4, chapter 4, inner light item 60. It's inner light for item 6. Before that, we're going to read a short preparation excerpt from Rav. It's good to listen to Rabash, even if we don't quite understand or if he speaks unclearly. We get used to it. His style is unique, not simple. You can even find special lessons of his long conversations and listen. It's very worthwhile. It's good to listen to Rabash, even if we don't quite understand him or if he speaks unclearly. We get used to it. His style is unique and not simple. You can even find special lessons of his long conversations and listen to it. It's very worthwhile. So again, we'll read from the study of the 10 Sfirot, volume 1, part 4, chapter 4, item 6 of the Ari. We're going to read item 6 from the Ari, and then Rabash will pick it up from item 60, inner light. After all the departure, the lights returned to their place in the Partsuf Ab of Ak, except for the light of Keter. Then there was a clash between the record of Keter and the light of Chokhmah on each other, and two vessels emerged, one for Keter and one for Chokhmah, which are male and female in the Rosh of Ab of Ak. Item 6. Indeed, after the reception of these Sfirot from the emanator, they returned to their place except for Keter. The vessel of Keter was then made only on the return, because when Chokhmah re-entered him, the light of Chokhmah struck the record that Keter placed in his place. And these were double strikes. For since the record of Keter is a higher phase than Chokhmah, it therefore strikes Chokhmah and elicits sparks. Likewise, since Chokhmah is now coming from above, she stands on the record and is higher than it. As a result, he now struck the record and elicited other sparks. Hence, two vessels were made now, one for the record of Keter and one for the Chokhmah that has now come. We have already discussed this at length in a different place, how there is male and female in the Keter, which are the two we mentioned here, namely the record and the Chokhmah. We'll go to Rabash.
Below 60. Why didn't the light of Keter return? 60. It is because the screen did not become coarser than phase 3 by its incorporation in Malchut of Rosh, as phase 4 did not leave a record. The last phase, the last discernment, is lost. The expansion on the screen of phase 3 is only up to the level of Chokhmah, lacking the light of Keter. It is said, they all returned to their place except for the Keter. We find that the light of Chokhmah clothes in the vessel of Keter. the light of Binah in the vessel of Chokhmah, the light of Serampin in the vessel of Binah, and the light of Malchut in the vessel of Serampin. Thus, Malchut remained without light. There he says in part 5, touching and not touching, what light is there in Malchut? Where he says that Malchut remains without a light, Rav says that there's the matter of Hay, which was divided in the Yesod, the part of the Vav of the Hay, opposite the part of the Daled of the Hay. Later, this is for later. We need to know what a record is, Lashimo, a record. Every person works according to records on which there was light. For example, yesterday you spoke to someone and he offended you. Today, you know, according to the record you have left from yesterday, that if you see that person, you stay away from him. You have a record left. Yesterday that person offended you. But if, anyway, you wanted to suffer a little bit, then you speak with him today as well. There are times, well, you know, yesterday you had a good mood. Just by way of allegory, you could tolerate it, even though he spoke to you, said to you things that offended you. But today you're irritable. If you speak to that person, you won't be able to hold back. You'll hit him upside the head. So you don't speak to him. And so, when we say that the last discernment is lost, the ability to overcome even lesser things, well, in any case, you overcome. But today he doesn't have that power. You can only overcome something that isn't terribly bad. That's the allegory. And the lesson is, before the surrounding light weakened him, he could overcome great lust, the coarseness of phase 4, great passion, to overcome, not to receive, but only in order to bestow. That discernment is lost to him. He can no longer overcome. What records remain that he can overcome? A higher level, not so coarse. The level of Keter in Partzuf of Galgalta was there, and he received in order to bestow. Later comes the surrounding light, and lets him understand that the path you walk is wrong. It weakens that force of overcoming, the power to overcome. And so he can not overcome and receive in order to bestow. He doesn't want to receive in order to receive, and so the light departs. And what's left for him are records of what he had before. Now he thinks, so to speak, he rises, ascends upwards, the screen with the records to the screen of Rosh, and he says, give me the power to overcome, the power of the screen. But the power I had before, well, I see I can no longer overcome to that extent. So give me a lesser power. This is called the last discernment is lost. That's how it's called. I also taught it this way, that all the discernments which emerged one below the other, or rather below this, all the discernments will shine later. All the screens will shine. And of this we say that previously 20% illuminated, let's say, and later not possible, only 19%. At the end of correction, everything will shine in eternality, not in surrounding. Above 70. The vessel of Keter was made only on the return, because when Chokhmah re-entered the vessel of the Keter, then the light of Chokhmah struck the record that Keter placed in his place. And these were double strikes. For since the record of Keter is a higher phase than Chokhmah, it therefore strikes Chokhmah and elicits sparks from Chokhmah. Likewise, since Chokhmah is now coming from above, she stands on the record and is higher than it. As a result, he now struck the record and elicited other sparks. Hence, two vessels were made now, one for the record of the Keter, and one for the Chokhmah that has now come. We have already discussed this at length in a different place, how there is male and female in Keter, which are the two we mentioned here, namely the record and the Chokhmah. What's written here? What does he explain to us? That there were double strikes and more vessels were made. What are those vessels? Let's see below. The vessel of Nukva of Keter. What is the vessel of Nukva? Which is light of Chokhmah clothed in the vessel of Keter, which is missing here for the above reason. Okay, so look, the other page, item 5, he says, "5. So did all the Sfirot do, except for Keter, which left the record for Chokhmah. However, he did not make a vessel, since when the rest of the Sfirot rise up by striking in what is above them, and the striking of the record became the vessels. So Keter, which was refined to the Sphira of Keter, it's not because it rises, striking it, reducing it. So the Sphira wasn't made. No vessels in the Sphira of Keter, rather. So he comes and explains to us, what if you make a vessel for the Sphira of Keter? And here you had double strikes. So he explains why in item 70. What's written there? The vessel of Keter was made only on the return. So he interprets, what is the vessel of Keter? We learned the records did remain. What are records? It's from the light of Keter. And so, when the light of Keter later comes to Parzuf Ab, meaning Daled of clothing, 4 of clothing, called male, he has records. as though he has a vessel. But the light of Chokhmah comes to the vessel of Keter, and there is no coarseness in the vessel of Keter. So he says that the light of Chokhmah that comes now, he diminishes it, the record of the Keter that remains there, and by that a vessel is made for the vessel of the Nukva, meaning the vessel of Nukva of Keter. What is Nukva of Keter? Striking on the coarseness of the third phase, which is the light of Chokhmah, clothed in the vessel of Keter. So now I need, in the vessel of Keter, now comes the light of Chokhmah, and there's a preparation there to receive the light of Chokhmah. And this is called the vessel of the Nukva, the female. And he asks, why do you need a record? For what do you have sparks in the vessels? And here, the meaning of the records is to extend light. Vessels, that's regarding the clothing of the light. I would interpret it. The next item, look above. Because when Chokhmah re-entered him, the vessel of Keter, the light of Chokhmah struck the record that Keter placed in his place. So he says, what does it mean? The light of Chokhmah struck. The degree of Chokhmah that came to clothing the vessel of Keter, similar to the color of the reflected light, the descending reflected light, as above, which is in contradiction with the light of the record, and so they clash. And the record, what remains, ultimately, the light of Keter was in the vessel of Keter, but now comes the light of Chokhmah. As we learned in the records, the record of phase 4, Malchut, doesn't want to receive the descending reflected light from the discernment that came from phase 3. From here also he doesn't want to receive. Why? This is a lower degree for him. The records, we say that it remains in the vessel of Keter of Partzuf Galgalta, a record from the light of Keter shining there. But it's only a record of clothing. Don't forget it. It's not a record of coarseness. And as we learned before, phase 4 was refined, the tamim, the flavors of Partzuf Galgalta, when the nikudot, the dots came, which as Rav says it, Malchut rose to Zerampin, and the level of Chokhmah extended, emerged on it, and then the descending reflected light wants to fill the vessel of Malchut, which had a Keter. Malchut doesn't want it. And then a spark descended from the descending reflected light to who? To Malchut. And so there is incorporation with Malchut. Malchut was incorporated with the third phase, meaning if I extend the level of Chokhmah there, before the extension of the degree of Keter, well, I can do it now. Why? Because now there's a preparation for the second degree. And here there's a question. What is he asking? What we're saying is that the light of Chokhmah, of the level of Keter, fell into Keter on the level of Keter. And here we are talking about Ab. It's not the Chokhmah of the level of Keter. It's the opposite, as I'm saying. It's the Keter of the level of Chokhmah. It's like a means, we have to say. From the Chokhmah of the level of Keter, later emerged the level of Chokhmah in itself. And it's like an intermediary between Keter and Chokhmah, meaning Chokhmah of Keter. And there's a rule that we don't discuss the details. We discuss generalities, rules. You have such a rule, not the details. When you want to enter into the details, it's confusing. It gets confused. So how do we learn? Parzuf Ab, like all the Parzufim, incorporated new vessels from old vessels. Not the inner Ab, not the outer Ab, not the inner Sag, not the outer Sag. You go into details and elaborate on them, but we learn everything about Ab. Sag, no details. How? Parzuf Ab, when it comes into prepared vessels remaining from Parzuf Galgalta. When I say the light of Chokhmah in the vessel of Keter, then we need to say, what vessel of Keter? I'm asking. Now come new vessels. This is the light of Keter. It's the light that is no longer needed. I say that he needs to fill it. So what did he have? What kind of filling does he receive? At every lower one that emerges, this is his degree. He needs no more. That's his degree. To fill what was there. Was he completely full? No. Filled? No. Why? He had the degree of Keter, and now comes the light of Chokhmah. Why did he receive it? But he has records. For that, there's a striking. What is a striking? We can say it, we can, well, let's give a more earthly allegory. A person is deliberating what to do, this or that. If to take the record, why? He has the degree of Keter. It's very highly regarded. And now comes only the light of Chokhmah. Is it better to receive the light than to remain in the record? Maybe not. Ultimately, it's just a record. And now a new light comes, smaller. But it's actual light that comes, not a record. So what do we learn? The light increases. We could say that the person, so to speak, chooses for himself the light of Chokhmah more. Now, because the light comes now, not a record. If to say it by way of allegory. And so, when we say records, in what vessels did the records remain? In the new vessels, there are no records. Not yet. However, everything we learn about the vessel is that on every degree there are old vessels. But he asks there, why in the world of Atzilut do we say that the old vessels are called Bon? Why? Because the light departed from them. That's why it's called Nekeva, female. And the Ma, then, meaning the light that comes anew, with the coupling by striking, he does, that is called male, Ma. And he fills the old vessels called Bon. So he asks, why do we not say that Ab fills old vessels? The old vessels, Galgalta, will be Bon, Nekeva. female, and he will be Zachar, male. Then he says something completely different. Why? He says, according to what we learned, according to the answer brought in part 3, that in the beginning, who received the light first? The new vessels or the old vessels? The old vessels. That we call the inner Ab. And later, who receives the new one? How can I say that he's male or female? However, in the world of Atzilut, the old vessels were flawed or annulled or broken, and from the vessel you need to extend new vessels, and then he gives from the old vessels. It'll be mine born. It's written above. It's written.
Item 90. Written above first, because when Chokhmah entered him, the light of Chokhmah struck the record that Keter placed in his place, the record of clothing. These were double strikes, for since the record of Keter is a higher phase than Chokhmah, it therefore strikes Chokhmah and elicits sparks. Likewise, since Chokhmah is now coming from above, she stands in the record and is higher. It's more important, it's higher than it. As a result, he now struck the record and elicited light and other sparks. Hence, two vessels were made now, one for the record of Keter and one for Chokhmah that has now come. So what does it say here? Let's see item 90, inner light. Says the record that remains from the first expansion is higher than Chokhmah, as her level is up to Keter. It is in contrast with the light of Chokhmah that comes now, whose level is only up to Chokhmah. Also, there is merit to the light of Chokhmah, for it now comes from above downward to clothe in the vessels. However, the record is imprinted with the desire to depart from clothing, although she does not actually ascend, as it's written in the words of the Ari. So he explains to us what is the meaning of double strikes. Each one above diminishes each one that's above, it diminishes or he cancels the second quality. It's called striking it, annulling it. Then you have two vessels, one for the record of the Keter and one for the Chokhmah that came now. It means, item 100, that the coarse light which fell from the record by the striking of the light of Chokhmah in it became a vessel for the light of the record, which is discerned as the male of the vessel of Keter. What does it say? The coarse light which fell from the record by the striking of the light of Chokhmah in it. So where's the deficiency? In the record. A deficiency, a lack. It became a vessel, for the light of the record, which is discerned as the male of the vessel of Keter. The vessel for the light of Chokhmah and the vessel of Keter discerned as the female of the vessel of Keter was made of the sparks that fell from the light of Chokhmah by the striking of the light of the record in it. And although there is already a vessel for the male of the vessel of Keter, nevertheless, by the striking of the light of Chokhmah, it is ended and renewed. What is he asking? We learned the record of the vessel of Keter on the light of Keter did remain. There's already a vessel for the male. So why do we need a diminution? That the light of Chokhmah will strike the vessel, strike the record, and the record will now diminished. That by this diminution it became a vessel for the light of the male. And that's what he explains here. Although there is already a vessel for the male of the vessel of Keter, nevertheless, by the striking of the light of Chokhmah, which is facing the record of Keter, it is ended and renewed by the deficiency. It's called deficiency in the vessel of Keter for the light of male, for the light of Keter. We've already discussed at length in a different place how there is, which are the two, male and female in Keter. What does it mean, male and female in the vessel of Keter? Which are the two we mentioned here, namely the record of the vessel of Keter, called male of the record of clothing, and the light that comes now, which is quality of coarseness. Item 200 refers to it in Etz Chaim, gate Mati velo Mati, present and not present. There he interprets this. It says here that there were double strikes between the light of Chokhmah and the record, and the record and the light of Chokhmah. There, in the refinement of the degree of tastes, which is referred to as the ascent of Malchut Ze'anpin, and the degree of Chokhmah came out, and the degree of Chokhmah wanted to shine in the vessel of Malchut. The vessel of Malchut doesn't want to receive it. So, what do we say? That there are double strikes. They don't say that there are double strikes, but he doesn't want to receive the light of Chokhmah. So, who's overcoming here? Chokhmah. Since it is over Malchut. Here he says there are double strikes. We'll look at item 90 again. Since the record that remains from the first expansion is higher than Chokhmah, as her level is up to Keter, it is in contrast with the light of Chokhmah that comes now, whose level is only up to Chokhmah. And that is why it strikes the light of Chokhmah, yes? Also, there is a merit to the light of Chokhmah, where it now comes from above downward to clothe in the vessels. However, the record is imprinted with a desire to depart from clothing, although she does not actually ascend, as it says in the words of the Ari. We'll talk about this tomorrow. Now we have to go and pray. Item 7. The words of the Ari. You will now understand how there is also in the world of Akudim a concept of cancellation of kings to some extent in the likeness of the kings who ruled in the land of Edom, who died and were cancelled, as is mentioned in the essay on the world of Nukudim. That is because the issue of the concealment of the lights of Akudim and their ascent to their emanator is also the cancellation of kings here. Delve and you will find. Look in page 276. Answer 12. The question is about annulment. What is annulment? So he says, answer number 12. After the light departed from the vessel and before it receives its correction and becomes suitable once more for the clothing of the light, it is considered a state of cancellation for the vessel, similar to a vessel that was cancelled from its use. Meaning, after the light departed from the vessel and the screen of the record ascended to the Rosh and was included in the Rosh, and if it was for the vessel, it would not be qualified to receive anything. This is called an annulment. From which side? Just as it was there written, who died and were cancelled. Here it calls it annulment. So he's asking, what kind of annulment was there here? The light departed, the vessel is worthy of receiving light, qualified. Until he ascends, he receives a screen. For now, it's annulled. That is because the issue of the concealment of the lights of Akudim and their ascent to their emanator is also the cancellation of kings here. Following line below, because both of them, Sag of Akudim, Sag of the world of Nukudim, were because of the ascent of the lights to the emanator, which means the refinement of the screen. Hence, the ways are also equal, as I explained at length in my book, Panim Meirot U'Masbirot, on Etz Chaim, regarding the breaking of the vessels. He explains there. The difference between them is when he says that there it was a correction in order to correct. There was a corruption in order to correct, and in the Kudim there was actual breaking and death. Item 8. However, the difference between them is that here in Akudim, the corruption was in order to correct, and the demolishing was in order to build. That was the primary intention of their ascent, which was to make the phases of the vessels. However, in Nekudim there was complete cancellation and actual death. Indeed, since in Akudim the vessels began to be revealed somewhat, there was also some cancellation, some annulment here. What does he want? Explanation. Because of the refinement in the screen, the levels gradually diminished from each higher phase. Sparks fell to the lower phase below it, which is the beginning of the inclusion of the attribute of mercy in judgment. This is because the sparks of a higher phase are considered the attribute of mercy in relation to the lower one, because he doesn't have a desire to receive quite like in the upper phase. It is known that the inclusion of the attribute of mercy in judgment is the foundation for the existence of the world. This is what he means. In Akudim there was a corruption, in order to correct, and demolishing in order to build. This resembles the breaking of the vessels, where the sparks fell in order to revive them with the attribute of mercy. The only difference between them is that here it was only corruption, whereas there was complete cancellation and actual death. But the final shattering, as he explains in item 8, indeed in the Akudim the vessels began to be revealed somewhat. There was also some annulment or cancellation. It's an answer to a question. Which question we have here that he answers? He doesn't say. When we learn in the world of Nikudim that Malchut of Chagat came out and shattered and fell to Bia, that's one. And here in Akudim we learn that the light departed from the degree and was also annulled for a time. And later the light of Ab came to fill these vessels again with light, and again these lights did not receive the light. That's why it's called cancellation to some extent, until they received the light again. And there they did not receive the light again. So what similarity do we have here? Well, indeed, why was it this way? Why there they fell and here the vessels remained in their place? What is the meaning in their place? Remained in sanctity. What happened there? Since after they expanded to Bia, their Malchut dominates them. And they wanted to receive in order to receive. So this place is in separation. They fell to the world of separation. Whereas in Akudim, when they saw that they have no screen, they didn't want to receive. They returned the light. You find that the vessels that were in sanctity, everything was in order to correct, but we don't learn it this way. Here they ask, he says, why did he say why didn't he say that they went up to receive their payments, since there was only a small degree until it was refined in order to ascend and receive an additional ascension. They received the maximum they could receive. And here, it wasn't the matter of the refinement of the screen. when they went up to receive a screen. However, the screen departed because they wanted to receive in order to receive. In the end, everything is corrections. But what do we see? That the vessel was corrupted. And here, in order to, for the time being, to correct it, he says that since the vessel cannot be revealed until the light will depart from it, seemingly, therefore he says it's one of the reasons the light began to depart. It was to recognize the vessel, reveal it. So the correction of the vessel was again there the vessel fell and broke. It's one thing that on the screen of phase 4 is called judgment. Screen, like a smaller degree, less reception, it's called more mercy. When the light that came out on phase 3 came down to the vessels that used to use before phase 4, it means that it's seemingly incorporated the measure of mercy with judgment. The vessel of judgment received a lot of mercy. Later, why did the light that came out on phase 3, he calls the reflected light that comes down sparks. Then he says, how does it come? It comes to the striking. What is the striking? The record that we have, the record of phase 4 that are there. The vessels do not want to receive. So why is it called? Why is it called sparks? Because for the time being, they shine like a spark. Since later, phase 3 is also refined. What do we have left? A record of phase 3. So now he has record from phase 4, record from phase 3. What is he taking now? Record of 4. You find that 3 doesn't shine now. Why is it only sparks? As long as there were actual light, he received it. Later, he did not. So you find that for the time being, it shines and it's called sparks, that it shines temporarily. So you have to start item 5. I'm sorry, chapter 5. Here he explains the inner and surrounding lights of Akudim. Well, let's learn. Item 1. From the mouth of Adam Kadmon emerged 10 inner and 10 surrounding sfirot, which extend from opposite the face down to opposite the taboo of this Adam Kadmon. This is the primary light, but it also shines through the sides to all the surroundings of this Adam, even the backside. What can we explain here? Everything is clear. We have to know what is panim, face, in spirituality, what is taboo, navel, in spirituality, what is ahoraim, posterior, in spirituality, what does it mean through the sides, what is the main light, what is not the main light. Let's see what he interprets down below. So, what does it say above? 10 inner and 10 surrounding sfirot emerged. So he says it in inner light. 1. There is no contradiction to what he says below. Chapter 6, item 18. That from the mouth of Ak They did not come out.